Okay, so welcome. Today's topic is about how to prepare for a college campus visit. All of you and your students may be in different spaces where you are with the process. I may have some senior parents on here who are maybe in the process of deciding which college their student is going to go to. And if you're a junior parent, and you're just starting the college process, you may have had your junior conference, you may not have yet, and you're just starting this process. This will be a good understanding of like what's to come, or some things that can be upcoming pretty soon. And if you are a parent of a freshman or sophomore, welcome, and I'm sure you will be learning about this in the next coming years. Okay, so like I said before, if there's any questions, feel free to put in the Q&A box. I'll be moderating that throughout our time together today, but we're going to talk about how to prepare for a campus visit. So first thing is start planning early. So whether you, like I said, everyone's in a different space, but whether you have colleges you want to visit or you don't have a list yet, this is your time to start planning. Plan out what regions you want to go to. So sometimes it's not always, you're not always able to go to every single college that either the student wants to visit or the student wants to or has applied to. So figure out what regions you're able to go to. And if that's the Northeast, then really, start looking at the Northeast. If you're able to go down south, and that's some of the colleges that they want to attend, then by all means do that. What's really nice now is a lot of the colleges have a virtual visit option. So if you're unable to get to the actual college campus, you're able to look at it from that virtual perspective now. And what the strategy that people have been using with the virtual visits is they'll take the virtual visit, see if it's something that their student likes or that they're interested in. And if they're really interested after the virtual visit, they will try to go visit campus. While you're planning out your, college campus tour visit and which colleges you're going to visit, just make sure, summer is a great time to visit college campuses because, our students are off and, there's a little bit more flexibility. But just keep in mind that colleges are not in session during the summer. So while they probably offer campus tours and you're able to go visit the colleges, you and your student are not going to get a, real vibe of what the campus is like because their student body will not be in session. So I recommend, I know breaks are hectic and weekends are hectic, but if you can try to go on a weekend, like in the spring or the fall, depending on where you are in the process, or over school breaks, that would probably be most beneficial. Or if the campus is having an open house, because that means they have everyone there, and campus will be buzzing if there's an open house. So that's really, you want to kind of make a list, however you organize, you want to know where you're going and when you're going, because maybe there's other colleges in the area that you're able to visit at the same time. So if you want to visit this one particular college, but within 20-mile radius, there's two others, maybe you stop at the two others just to see. The questions are: the kids marked absent if they take the day to attend a campus visit or invitation to visit the colleges that they were accepted? Good question. So they can visit the colleges and they will get an excused absence, I believe. So you follow up with the attendance office and just let them know that they can visit the colleges, that you're visiting the colleges. Another question is, don't most colleges begin their semester in August before our semester begins in September? It varies. It depends on the college. Most colleges will start the last week of August, but some colleges will not do campus tours that week because it's the first week that students are back. So it really depends on the campus, but there are campuses that start after Labor Day as well. So They do. Most of them do, but some will start after Labor Day and some won't hold campus tours that week because it's the first week of school. But good question. Okay. All right. So the next thing is that you want to be prepared with questions. You want to know what questions to ask and, the most beneficial way that you can get all of the information you need during that college visit. Oh, another question came in. So, is it true that colleges weigh more heavily those students who visit their school? Another good question, and that actually was in my ask question. So some schools will track demonstrated interest, and when you are at that college, you want to ask them, do they track demonstrated interest? Not all schools will, some schools, and some schools will. So if they are a school that does track that, visiting their school and coming for a college campus is tracking, is part of demonstrated interest. So they will see that. Some schools will take that into their admissions decision account. So like if the student goes on a campus tour, if the student opens all of the emails that they get from the school, if the student logs onto a virtual event that the school is having, anything that the student can register in, if they meet the admissions rep and fill out a card, that's demonstrated interest. So if the school does track that, yes, a campus tour will count. But not every school tracks that. So you have to know which schools do and don't. Did that answer your question? Okay. All right. So along those lines, so tracking demonstrated interest was in my ask question. Along those lines, you want to understand what's most important to you and your student. So you want to understand, why are you visiting that school? Is it academics? Is it social? Is it that they're in a city? It's urban, it's suburban, what is that? And then that's really how you're going to guide your question. One big thing that I always tell families to ask when they visit a college is what kind of support services do they offer their students? So from high school to college is a big transition. Studying wise, living on their own if they're going away, and just the coursework in general. So you want to know before you leave that campus tour what kind of services, whether it be tutoring services, academic services, just living services, support of living, residence hall services. You want to know what services are offered to your student. So that way, when you're making the decision whether you apply there or whether you're going to attend there, you know the full scope and the full picture. So the services portion is really big, and sometimes they will not cover that in a campus tour because they're there to show you the campus. So just make sure you ask what kinds of services they do offer to all of their students. The other question that I really like when I tell families to ask on campus tours is what is your largest class size on campus? Some people will say, oh, well, that's what the student to faculty ratio is for. I look up student to faculty ratio, but student to faculty ratio doesn't account every class. That's just the average. So there could still be some large, classes on campus that may not look like that based on the student to faculty ratio. So I always just like to ask, what is the largest class on campus and how often does that happen? So maybe they say, freshman year, you may have 3 of your big lectures as really large 500-person lecture halls. But then after that, it's not really that common. So you just want to understand what the full scope of the academics looks like for your student when you're deciding on that college. So asking that question is really big. The other thing that people like to ask is, and this kind of goes in tandem, all 3 of these next ones go in tandem with each other. How big is your alumni network? What percentage of students get internships if that's something you're going into that field? And what is your job placement rate after college? So as big of a deal as it is to choose a college, you're already thinking ahead. Students have to get jobs or, maybe go to grad school after college. And what do those placements look like? So you just want to make sure you understand what they're, and if they can't answer that, you want to know who you can ask and usually they'll point you in the direction to the Career Center, but you want to know that job placement rate. The other thing is if you know what you want to study, you may want to ask who the best professor is or who the best in that department is to ask questions about the major and the program in general. So a lot of times admissions counselors are generalists and they know about the entire campus and that is their job, but sometimes they will not know specifics regarding majors and programs. So you want to know who that person is and get a contact information to understand who you can ask all of those questions to regarding major and programs. Excuse me. Because sometimes there's very specific nuanced things to certain programs that you or your student are looking for, depending on the major. So you just want to get that contact information. The other thing that's really awesome, and depending on where you go to, which school you go to, some campus tours will be given by students. And other campus tours will be given by admissions representatives. So if your tour is not given by a student, I would ask them and see if there's any students around, either in the admissions office or anywhere on campus that you could kind of talk to and just see from a student perspective, how do they like the school? So student perspectives are really valuable because they're going through that school right now. And they're doing all of the things that your student will be doing when they attend that school. So I recommend, if you could, talk to a current student while you're there. If you go during an open house or a campus event, a lot of times they will have current students there to talk to prospective students. So that's really powerful because they were in your student's shoes not that long ago, and they can kind of help clarify some things that may not be clear in the admissions process. Okay. Any questions regarding questions, talking to students, talking to professors? No? Okay. All right, we're going to move on. So the next thing is, before you even step foot on campus, you may want to, obviously you're visiting this campus because you've researched it or your student is interested in it. Why are they interested in it? Do they have a great program that they want to study in? Is it the social atmosphere they want to be in? Is it not that far from home, but it's still far away from home? Whatever the reason is, you may want to go on. So, right now we have all this great technology, and a lot of college campuses are marketing, their programs and all of these things through their social media. So between social media and their websites, you may just want to go on and kind of see how they're marketing themselves. Like, what is most important to their campus? What do they value? Do they value their athletics program? Is that spoken a lot about? Do they value their ranking? Is their ranking spoken a lot about on their social media pages? Are social media pages run by students? Do they have student-driven work on there? So it might help you to understand what lens the college is coming from and what they value before you even step foot on campus. And that may help you determine two things. One, if you go visit the campus, but two, it may help you determine that that's also important to your student and this may be a good fit. So it's helpful. It's not a necessity because, some colleges don't use social media as readily as other colleges or their website as readily as other colleges, but it's always worth a look just to see what they value and what they're talking about on their pages. Okay, so something more frequently than not that college tours do not touch upon is specific academic departments. So when you go on a college campus tour, they will likely give you an overview of the campus. So, you'll walk around, you'll generally see the big stuff, right? Like the Student Services Center, if they have a union on campus, like maybe the academic advising department, the library, and generally they'll show you a residence hall. And then they'll walk, and a dining hall sometimes. And then they'll walk you around campus just to see like the outside of campus and what does that look like in the academic buildings. This kind of goes back to that question that I said to ask about, like, who is the best person in the department to ask academic questions towards. More likely than not, they're not going to hit upon specific majors. So the goal of a campus tour is to understand, if the campus is right for your student, but they're not going to go into specifics. So a lot of times while you're there on campus, especially if it is in the middle of the week during the day when school's in session, a lot of times if you walk over to the academic department, there'll be someone there that you can speak to. So it might help you understand if you're looking for something very, very specific regarding a major or a program that your student is interested in studying, it might behoove you to go walk over there. And even if there isn't someone to speak to, just seeing the building and the facilities where they would be studying. If they're studying a science or an engineering, like what do the labs look like? Because that's where the student will be sitting in the classroom, and the student has to, visualize themselves studying there. And environment can impact a lot of decisions. So the other thing is, when you're visiting colleges, is you may be set on this one college that you want to visit, for whatever reason. Again, it's on your list, it's on your students' list. But I encourage you to look at college campuses nearby that campus. There may be 3 or 4 more campuses, especially if you're in a city, 3 or 4 more campuses within like a 15-mile, 20-mile radius. So even if you weren't interested in those campuses, you might want to go check them out just to see, and they might be a very different campus from the one you're visiting. So it might help your student decide what type of campus is right for them. So if you're visiting a very large school, but maybe 15 miles away is a smaller school, it might give the student more depth in their college process and understanding what type of school they want, even if you don't intend to go there. So I would really recommend trying to visit maybe 2 campuses a day. So that way, if they're close enough, so that way the student has something to compare it to. And it'll help them understand what they liked and what they didn't like about each campus, and then help propel your research forward. The other thing that goes along with that is learning about the local community. So, I hear a lot of people say, like, it's all about the college campus and the campus and what the campus has to offer. But at the end of the day, at some point, whether it's not the first year, the second year, maybe the third year, your student will probably go off campus for either, internship programs, or they may choose to live off campus at some point, or just even running general errands off of campus if they have, a car with them, or they have to go shopping for whatever reason. So you want to understand the community that surrounds the campus and the local area. So what I recommend is, if you have time, either before or after, I like to generally do it after a college campus tour, because I ask the admissions rep what is like the best restaurant or the best place to visit in the local area, and get recommendations, and then maybe have lunch on the way out or something. And then from there, you can ask a local person, what it's like to live in the area, what it's like to live around the college, and really get a sense of that local community, because that's really, really important. So there's a question, not sure if the schools will share this information, but where could I get information about campus crime or the city community crime? That's a really good question. And I actually have on my list, which is next, is asking about campus safety. So a lot of times college campuses will share that information. What does campus crime look like? Because they have to report it for their campus safety. Something else that I also like to ask admissions representatives is, what does their campus safety look like? Some of them will just have campus safety. Some of them will have their own police force. There's a lot of different ways that campus safety takes, shape. So I would definitely ask that question. But as far as campus crime, they should be able to share that with you. As far as like the local city community crime, there's different websites. I think one of them is called Crime Mapping. There's different websites. They may not know the local or city community crime. You can ask them, but college campuses most often don't know like their local city. But there's different websites that can calculate what does the crime rate look like. So I would, try to just Google around, because not all of the cities and all of the local communities are on, all the different websites. So, but that's something you could probably find on the internet. But as far as campus safety, the admissions rep should be able to answer that. A lot of campuses have started with the blue light system. So if you have older siblings or older children that are already on college campuses, a lot of them have the poles with the blue lights at the top of them where you can hit it if there's a campus emergency. If you're walking through campus, that's something else that you may want to ask if it's on campus. So you want to ask the rep, what do they do to prevent campus crime, or what are the safety measures in place for our students? Okay, so another good question. At what point in the college research admissions process should the student make direct contact with the admissions rep responsible for Long Island? So that's a really good question. And it's asked so frequently. So every, and it sounds the same, but every school's admissions runs very differently. So some of them will have Long Island reps, some of them will not. You also have to understand if the Long Island rep is the one reading the Long Island applications, or if they all just read them together. As far as contacting the specific Long Island rep, if there is one, I would say probably, so if your student is a junior right now, I would say wait till about July or August, because right now, currently admissions reps are reading for current seniors. So they're reading those applications, making admissions decisions for those current applications. And then when May 1st hits, they're worried about creating their class, getting students to matriculate for the following fall. And then if there's anyone on the wait list, that takes a process, and that usually takes about all of May and into June. So they're worried currently right now about current seniors. So if you are a junior and you reach out, they're probably not going to reach out back to you. So I would say like July. Obviously, there's always exceptions to that. So like if you're being recruited for a sport or a specific program, there's always those exceptions as well. Another question is, I did not know about the Long Island rep. What questions could I ask to them? So you could ask them all of the questions that we went over previously, like what support services do you have for the students? How big is the alumni network, job placement, all of those things. But like I said before, not all schools will have a specific Long Island rep. Some of them will have a New York State rep. Some of them won't have a region rep at all. So it's important to understand, and you can find that generally on their admissions website, or you can call the admissions office and ask them if, who should I contact for Long Island if I'm interested in the school, and they'll be able to share that with you. Does that answer your question? So the other thing is, if they give you the option to eat in the dining hall, that may be something else that may be of interest to you, since your student will be eating in these dining halls every day. It might be important to kind of see, the food and, the environment in the dining hall. So if they offer that, that may be something you want to take advantage of while you're on campus, because it's very rare that you're able to, get into those dining halls prior to them living on campus. The last piece that I have is, ask them about, merit scholarship and how many students, what percentage of their students get scholarships, and what is the average scholarship. Because, when we're looking at colleges, finances do play a role. So you want to understand if that's something that's important to you. What is the average scholarship that a student gets, and how many of their students get scholarship? Because I think, sometimes when you're applying and you don't know those answers, it's very hard to apply and understand, how you're going to finance the school. But if you have an idea of what kinds of scholarships they give and how many students, it might help you through that college process and make some decisions there. Let me see what's next. Do I have a summary of a good list of questions? I mean, I could, if you wanna email me, you can email me and I can give you like my summary list of questions, but really I would say the list of questions should be kind of really specific to you and your student. So I have like the general ones that, I typically recommend to ask, but like I said, if you're looking for a specific program or something really important to you, like the environment, you want to make sure that you craft questions that make sense for you and your student. So the biggest piece of information that I can give you all is you want to walk away from that campus tour feeling like you know the school and feeling like you could make a decision tomorrow on it with all of the information you gained. If you just walk that campus tour, you will have a really, really good sense of what the college campus looks like and what their buildings look like. But if you don't go further into depth with asking those questions, you may walk away having more questions than you did when you started the campus tour. So just make sure that you are looking to see, what you really want to get from that campus tour. So when reaching out, good question, when reaching out to admissions officers, when the time is appropriate, is it better for the student themselves to call or the parent? I would definitely say the student. So I used to work in admissions a couple of years ago, and when they get to college, they're the ones that have to, they have to talk for themselves and they have to represent themselves when they get there as freshmen. So I really appreciated when a student called and reached out to the admissions office on their own. Now, obviously, again, there's always exceptions to that. And if the parent calls, for another reason, that's totally fine. But if it's just to gather information, I totally recommend the student calling, even if you're sitting there with the student and maybe have it on speakerphone so you can hear the information as well. I would just at least have the student there with you. So good question. Is it okay to do online tours if the colleges are far, and are they really helpful? So the virtual tours are really helpful in understanding, because some of the colleges are so far and you don't want to go there if you really don't like them. Don't like the campus or it's not the field that your student is looking for. So I think campus online virtual tours are really helpful in that respect. They're not going to give you, the full vibe as it would be stepping on campus, but they're going to at least indicate whether you or your student are interested in that campus. So I always recommend, if the college is far and you don't know if you want to go all that way to visit, doing that virtual tour first to see what it looks like. Okay. So last two questions, and then we're going to wrap up. So generally speaking, what are the weights or most weighty criteria that young adults are being judged on? I'm assuming for the college admissions process, a lot of schools have gone to holistic reviews, meaning anything that they're asking for, whether it be GPA, test scores, essay, all of those things, they're reviewing them all equally. But again, college admissions, they all run their admissions office differently. So that could be a question that you ask when you go on a campus tour, like what is most heavily weighted in your college admissions process? And they should be able to answer that. Some of them will say, test scores are weighted very heavily, or, we really value, the student personal statement. So that's definitely something you should ask, but there's no one answer as to what they're being looked at for the most. Oh, the last question is it better to have doctors from the city they attend college, or does the school offer some sort of health care? Another good question, and something you should definitely ask on your campus tour, but most, if not all, campuses have what they call like a student infirmary, and it's basically a doctor's office on campus. And if they feel that they cannot treat the student on campus for whatever reason, they'll either recommend a doctor or obviously the hospital in the area. But most of them will have something on campus where they can attend to their students. All right. So thank you all for joining me today. I hope you got a lot out of this chat, and I will see you again next time. Have a great day.